Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. Hi. I had to put on my reaching hat. Hear me out. Hi guys, so as usual, all my sources are down below and this is going to be very graphic. So Epstein's operation worked like a sexual pyramid scheme. Underage girls would be recruited oftentimes by other underage girls. They were recruited under the guise that you could make hundreds of dollars giving massages to this old rich guy in Palm Beach. Then once they get to the house, they are greeted by a woman, and this woman would tell them, okay, this is how the massage is gonna go, and he might have you do the massage like in your underwear, but you won't have to take anything off. Keep in mind also, if they were to consent to anything, they're underage, which makes their consent invalid. So but what would happen is, as soon as they would walk in, they all describe what would happen down to a T in the way that it was similar. He had a method to the madness. So the common interview with the girls would be something like this. They would say, I was brought in to give him a massage. Things were out of control. They got out of hand. I was uncomfortable. And then he offered me more money either to keep doing this or even more money if they were to bring someone. Apparently, Jeff Epstein's major obsession was with new, different, fresh faces, constantly new. It's like the fact that this had never happened to them before and that he did this to them was a big part of the appeal for him. Now, the grooming that went into this was expert level grooming, a type of grooming that you can only do when you have tons of money and connections. Now, one of the most important parts to his method of grooming was that he picked poor girls. And there was a particular trailer park that he would send his Mercedes to go in and pick girls up from there, and the girls who were recruiting for him would be living in the trailer park, and they would find other girls in the trailer park for whom $200, $300, sometimes even thousands of dollars was an insane amount of money. The fact that they didn't have money was a major way that he was able to manipulate them in the way that he did. They also targeted girls that expressed an interest in careers that had to do with modeling, singing, acting, anything that Jeffrey Epstein could say, oh, I have connections. I know the head of this. I know the owner of that. I could get you in with them. And he wasn't all bad in the sense of just abusing them and being aggressive. No, this is part of grooming. He knows that you got to give and take a little bit. So he would send flowers to girls when they were doing a play at the school and they wanted to get into acting. He would send huge bouquets of flowers to them. He had copies of a lot of their transcripts. He would give them advice on how to do good in school so that you could get into good colleges, that you could become one of these rich people and get access to this world. He was like a father figure who was also molesting them. It was very weird. He was known to tell these women, hey, if you have sex with this man, which usually was a huge, powerful person, I'll get you a modeling contract. When he would commit his particularly heinous acts, he would lavish them with gifts and large sums of money immediately after, which is very typical of an abuser, where they do the abuse and then right after they feel really bad and they're super nice, super generous, super kind. It's like a mind game. On one occasion, Jeffrey Epstein raped an underage girl, and soon after he purchased her a 2005 Dodge Neon that was blue for her personal use. Another girl, she told detectives that she was recruited by a girl who overheard her at the mall complaining about how she didn't have enough money for a vacation. In one incident, Jeffrey raped her and she was so sore afterwards that she actually had difficulty walking to her car. And what do you think he did soon after that? He gave her $1,000 and a car. If they didn't like it, he would then pay them more to get more girls and do the same thing with those girls, and that's how you get the pyramid scheme. The officer says the descriptions were so accurate down to his genitalia. Sorry. Now, some of these victims only went to his house one time, and that was enough for them, and then they never went back again. But other girls went back as much as hundreds of times. One of these girls who went back so many times was Courtney Wild. Courtney Wild still had braces on her teeth when she met Jeffrey Epstein in 2002 at the age of 14. She said that Jeffrey had a type. He wanted white girls who had blue eyes, who were blonde, and who were very young. The more impressionable, the better. Courtney Wild said, but by the time she was 16, she had already brought him 70 to 80 girls. She said most of them were either 14 or 15 years old. Virginia Giuffre, also known as Virginia Roberts, that's her maiden name. We're going to go by Virginia Roberts because that was her name at the time. Few people had as much insight into Epstein's life as Virginia Roberts. Now, Virginia was the perfect candidate to be groomed and abused by someone like Jeffrey. By the time she was 16, she had already lived a life that some of us won't even touch in a lifetime. At 11 years old, she was sexually molested by a family friend. At 12 years old, she was already smoking pot and skipping school. By 13, she was in and out of foster homes, and by 14, she was already on the street, basically homeless. When she was homeless, she became a victim of another sex trafficker before she ever met Epstein. His name was Ron Eppinger. She says that for months, Ron Eppinger sexually abused her and held her captive. While she was being held captive, she was pimped out by him to other pedophiles in that same place. He got indicted in 2000 on trafficking charges, and soon after that, she met Jeffrey Epstein. That summer, she had gotten a job at President Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort. Her father had hooked her up with a job, and she was 16 years old working as like a towel girl. She met one of Epstein's recruiters. That recruiter offered Virginia Roberts a job as a massage therapist for a rich old man, and you could just be wearing, you know, like a bathing suit. Now, Virginia, being trafficked before, it wasn't so difficult to convince her to do the things that Epstein wanted her to do during the massage. Virginia Roberts says, quote, "It started with one and it trickled into two and so on. And before you know it, I'm being lent out to politicians and academics and royalty." And one of the people she claimed she was trafficked to was Prince Andrew, and also she claims Alan Dershowitz. But we'll get into those two a little bit later. So let's get into Epstein, right? Who's Epstein? How did he get his money and who did he get it from? Jeffrey Epstein was born on January 10th, 1953 in Brooklyn. So Jeffrey Epstein did not come from money at all. He grew up in a working class neighborhood. He went to public schools, and his mother was a homemaker, and she worked as a teacher's aide from time to time, and his father was a groundskeeper. Epstein was known to be really smart and particularly good at math. He actually graduated high school at the age of 16, skipping 2 years. He then went on to a prestigious college, but he actually dropped out. Then, oddly enough, as a college dropout, he gets hired as a teacher in one of the most prestigious schools in Manhattan. This would begin a lot of weird connections that Epstein had with a lot of powerful people. He was hired by none other than Donald Barr, William Barr's father. Now, who is William Barr? U.S. Attorney General Bill Barr, aka William Barr, is going to play a very big part in a later episode. But for now, I just want you to file that away, that Bill Barr's father, Donald Barr, hired an unexperienced college dropout to be a teacher at the most prestigious school in Manhattan, where Donald Barr was the headmaster. So now you've got this middle-class kid from Coney Island, Brooklyn, who is now teaching at Dalton, where the children of the elite are his students. While teaching at the school, he became very friendly with a daughter of a very powerful man. This man is called Alan Greenberg. Alan Greenberg was the CEO of Bear Stearns. They went bankrupt and got bought out by JP Morgan in the 2008 crash, but at this time they were like a huge investment firm in Manhattan. Epstein had a particularly close relationship with the daughter, Lynn Copel. Lynn Copel is Alan Greenberg's daughter. He ends up getting to a close enough connection with Alan Greenberg to where when he gets fired for poor performance at the school, he gets hired at Bear Stearns by Alan Greenberg. Not only does he strangely get this job after being fired from the school, but he rises up the ranks unusually fast. I'm talking in 4 years, he became partner of Bear Stearns. It's weird. Then, In 1981, he abruptly leaves Bear Stearns. There are rumors that he left because of some sort of illegal activity and that they actually asked him to resign, but officially on paper, he left Bear Stearns to start his own company. A year later, he does in fact start his own company, J. Epstein & Co. He sets up shop at a particular building that I want you to take note of. It's East 66th Street in New York. Remember this address. Now, he had a very unusual premise for his investment business. It was basically that you had to have $1 billion or more to invest with him, or else he wouldn't deal with you. He remained so true to this $1 billion entry fee that when he got letters from people who wanted him to manage $700 million, he would send them a not so very polite no thank you, billionaires only. This is where the story gets even weirder. You could not find any transactions or any trading or investing that Epstein did. Compared to other people who handled investments of the very wealthy, who were dealing with billions of dollars, you could get all that information easily accessible. One high-level investment manager is quoted as saying, "The trading desk don't seem to know him, and it's unusual for animals that big not to leave any footprints in the snow." But even without this track record, he still was able to get at least one client that we know of. Enter into the scene billionaire Les WEXNER. So Leslie WEXNER owned limited company, which owned the L brands, which owns companies you may be familiar with like Victoria's Secret, Bath & Body Works, Lane Bryant, just to name a few. The Victoria's Secret thing is going to play in a little bit later. WEXNER's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein raised a lot of eyebrows. It was weird. Similar to his relationship with Donald Barr and his relationship with Alan Greenberg. It was weird. So this person is quoted as saying, "In fact, almost everyone at the Limited wondered who Epstein was. He literally came out of nowhere." Robert Murawski, a former chairman of the Limited, is also quoted as saying, "Everyone was mystified as to what his appeal was." Now, this is what's really weird. WEXNER trusted Jeffrey Epstein so completely that he actually gave him power of attorney over all of his financial trusts and foundations. And this is not going to be the end of the weird things that happened between Leslie WEXNER and Jeff Epstein. You see, when Leslie WEXNER entered Jeff Epstein's life, Jeff Epstein instantly became one of the elites. He was made a member of very exclusive foundations and commissions, such as the Trilateral Commission, the Council on Foreign Relations. Epstein even persuaded WEXNER to put him on the board of WEXNER's foundation instead of WEXNER's ailing mother. In 1989, WEXNER, through a trust, which remember, Epstein has power of attorney over all his trusts, so WEXNER, through this trust, purchases a mega million New York mansion. This is the townhouse in which Epstein would commit a lot of his crimes. In 1993, just a few years after purchasing this house, WEXNER remarries and moves to Ohio. Now, this home in Ohio that WEXNER moves to also became the scene of a crime. Enter Maria Farmer into the scene. Who is Maria Farmer? Maria Farmer reported about Jeffrey and his co-conspirator in 1996, but the FBI did nothing about it. Now, we can sit here and speculate, which we'll get into later, why the FBI didn't get involved. This could have all been prevented if they did something. Maria Farmer said that Jeffrey Epstein and a woman by the name of GHISLANE Maxwell assaulted her at WEXNER's Ohio home. Now, who the hell is GHISLANE Maxwell? GHISLANE Maxwell was born on Christmas Day in 1961 in France. Throughout her childhood, GHISLANE was brought up in a 53-room mansion. Her father was disgraced billionaire Robert Maxwell, which we'll get into him in just a second. Now, GHISLANE had a very unusual relationship with her father, and everybody said that it was not a secret that she was his favorite. Her father was super protective. He wouldn't let her bring boyfriends home or even be seen with them publicly, even after she went to college. After graduating, GHISLANE settled into a nice job as a socialite, which honestly, good times, fun, nice job. I wish I could be a socialite. You see, she may have been looking like a socialite and she had everything, but daddy was having money problems. In 1989, Robert Maxwell started selling off his popular, successful businesses to cover his debts. On November 5th, 1990, GHISLANE flew to New York to deliver a letter on her father's behalf, but unbeknownst to her, this was part of a plot, a scheme that her father was hatching to steal hundreds of millions of dollars from shareholders. A year later to the day from when GHISLANE delivered that letter, Robert Maxwell was found dead in the ocean, naked, apparently fallen off of his yacht, which by the name was called the Lady GHISLANE, which, by the way, when Epstein went and got his own yacht, he also called it the Lady GHISLANE. Fun fact. His death was ruled an accident, although 3 pathologists were not able to agree on the cause of death during the inquest. So once that was made public, GHISLANE, her brother, and basically all of Robert Maxwell's family said, no, this is not an accident, this was murder. After his death, it was revealed that he had been a fraudster to the core. Now, the British Foreign Office thought that he was a spy. They suspected that Maxwell was a secret agent or a double agent or even a triple agent. Quote, he had a thoroughly bad character and was almost certainly financed by Russia. He had known links to the British Secret Service, the M16, as well as the KGB and the Mossad, which is like the Israeli intelligence. Like, think of it, the Mossad, as like the Israeli CIA. It would be safe to say that a lot of people wanted Robert Maxwell dead. But back to GHISLANE. So right after her father's death in 1991, she moves to New York. She quickly becomes a fixture on the social scene and becomes a socialite in New York. She was photographed and was friends with many notable figures in the New York scene. GHISLANE and Jeffrey Epstein first meet at a New York party in the early 90s. GHISLANE is the one who introduced Prince Andrew to Epstein. GHISLANE was described by people as a man-eater. She flew her own helicopter. She has also been accused, not just by Virginia Roberts, but by a lot of other women, of being his #1 recruiter and groomer, and she participated in the abuse. Now hear me out. I started thinking, how did GHISLANE and Epstein make all this money? I suspect that they were making money in the 90s trafficking these children to the global elite, basically. But more on that later. In 1995, Epstein renamed one of his companies and changed it to the GHISLANE Corporation. Could this have possibly been a funnel for her cut of the business? Now, as if Epstein and WEXNER's relationship could not get any weirder, it does. In 1996, Epstein moves into WEXNER's townhouse, the one in New York. Now, what makes this so weird is several things. First of all, this was not your average townhouse, okay? WEXNER's townhouse is one of the largest private homes in Manhattan. It has a heated sidewalk in front to melt the snow during the winter months. I didn't even know you could do that. And somehow, Jeffrey lived in the house but never actually paid for it. Public documents suggest that the house is still owned by the trust that bought it, even though Epstein claimed to everyone that he owned it. There's no transaction of any money being exchanged. There's no reason why Epstein would be living in the largest private home in Manhattan for free. Why would Leslie Wexner just give up this house, move to Ohio, and just give him this house? Could it have been payment for some sort of service? Or was it blackmail? Speaking of weird, you know what else is weird? The baby ranch. Yeah, you heard me right. The baby ranch. Epstein had another property. Epstein has a lot of properties. So let's talk about his ranch in New Mexico. Now, this ranch was officially called Zorro, but it was also known as the baby ranch. In addition to the townhouse, Epstein lives in the largest private dwelling in New Mexico. It's an $18 million, 7,500 acre ranch, which Jeffrey Epstein claims makes the townhouse look like a shack. What a dick. Open up your mental filing cabinets because I need you to store this one away. Epstein purchased the ranch from the New Mexico governor, Bruce King's relative, in 1993. Remember this. So this ranch is surrounded on nearly all sides by land that's owned by the King family. This insulated it from prying eyes. Now, why was it called the Baby Ranch? Because Epstein wanted to turn the ranch into a human breeding farm. Duh. Super normal. He planned to, quote, seed the human race with his DNA by impregnating up to 20 women at a time using his New Mexico compound as a baby ranch where mothers would give birth to his offspring. Whatever they decided to do with the baby and all the things they would, I don't know what the hell. Jeffrey Epstein had a strong interest in a lot of weird scientific things, let me tell you. So he was interested in improving the human race through genetic engineering and artificial intelligence, including using his own sperm, naturally. Now here's the weird one. Jeffrey Epstein was an advocate of cryonics. What is cryonics? Allow me to tell you. Cryonics is the freezing and storage of human corpse or severed head with the speculative hope that resurrection may be possible in the future. Epstein had said that he intended to have his head and penis frozen in the hopes that both, of course, could be resurrected later and allow him to perpetuate this wonderful human race of Epstein Frankenstein babies. So now he's got the townhouse, he's got the baby ranch, and he also has his home in Palm Beach. Now, this home in Palm Beach would be the home that would be his undoing. Inside this Palm Beach home, Jeffrey Epstein would molest and rape countless girls. I found police video of Jeffrey Epstein's home. Now we need to talk about the private islands. So the first island that Jeffrey had was called Little St. James, which he nicknamed Little St. Jeff, but the locals nicknamed it Pedophile Island. In 2016, he would purchase another neighboring larger island called the Great St. James. He used a straw purchaser to conceal his identity when he purchased it. He did that to keep people from monitoring him there and to keep his victims from escaping from there. It is reported that one of his victims tried to escape by swimming away from the island. So Epstein also kept a computerized database of all the girls who came into the island. Now, he was able to bring them undetected into the island using his private jet. That private jet was nicknamed the Lolita Express. Like, the fact that it was called the Lolita Express, like, don't even get me started. Victims say that he had furnished the jet with a large bed, which he would then use to force these girls to service his customers. According to flight logs, the plane has carried Presidents Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Prince Andrew, actor Kevin Spacey, comedian Chris Tucker, model Naomi Campbell, just to name a few. Politician, royalty, academics, CEOs of companies, founders of major industries. I mean, literally every race, every gender, every political party was involved. The only thing that any of these people had in common was that they were extremely wealthy and powerful. Virginia Roberts, her name was in the same flight logs as Prince Andrew and Alan Dershowitz. Now, we're going to be getting into the flight logs in greater detail at a later episode. Now, remember I told you earlier he opened his business in East 66th Street, and to remember that, this East 66th Street was, I consider it his pedophile pipeline. I looked into it, I started connecting the dates and the names and the people and the places, and I am certain, without a doubt, that he used this apartment to hold and house a lot of shady businesses and underage girls under the guise of modeling. The first thing that alerted me to this place is Epstein's Little Black Book. Now again, we're going to go deep into the Little Black Book in the next episode, but for now, I just want to talk about it in the scope of East 66th Street. So when I was looking through the Little Black Book, which is like 96 pages of basically all the people that Epstein knew, I found that there was an address that was circled, East 66th Street, and it said apartment for models. For decades, Epstein has run his operations quietly out of this squat, rundown building compared to all his other properties. Jeffrey Epstein once had 3 12-year-old girls from poor families in France brought over to him by his private jet, the Lolita Express, as a birthday gift. A lot of them were being housed at East 66th Street. Virginia Roberts is quoted as saying, "Brunel bought them in Paris from their parents, offering them the usual sums of money, visas, and modeling career prospects. Epstein invested $1 million to help launch Brunel's Miami-based modeling firm MC2 in return for a supply of girls on tap." Virginia Roberts says that Jeffrey Epstein bragged to her openly that these were two 12-year-olds that he had flown over from France because they're really poor over there and their parents needed the money. Laughing the whole way through, Jeffrey thought it was absolutely brilliant how easily money seduced all walks of life. Nothing or no one couldn't be bought. Let's talk about Mr. Brunel. Jean-Luc Brunel was the founder of MC2 Models. So about this MC2 modeling agency, there's one thing that everybody agrees on, and that is that all the models were under the age of 18. Most of them under the age of 16. According to Maritza Vasquez, who is a bookkeeper for the modeling agency, she states that many of the models were foreign and scouted by Brunel. She says that it was part of her job to help obtain visas for the girls, and she recalled fielding an angry call from Jeffrey Epstein after a model visa application for a 14-year-old Nadia Marcinkova fell through. The twists and turns. This brings me to poor Nadia. Epstein called Nadia his sex slave and that he purchased her as a sex slave from Yugoslavia. Now, Nadia was accused by many of the victims of participating in these horrible sexual acts, but at the time she was actually underage. She was only 16. It blurred the line between, is she an accomplice or is she a victim? Now, police consider her a victim because she was under the age of consent throughout all of these things, and whatever she did at Jeffrey Epstein's request. But she was loyal to Jeffrey Epstein, so loyal. Now, I don't know if this is some Stockholm Syndrome brainwashing, which is what I'm guessing. Nadia visited Jeffrey Epstein over 70 times when he would later get arrested the first time. She also pled the fifth and was not cooperative with the police at all when they came knocking. Now, Nadia is an FAA certified pilot, and she also was on his flight manifests, on the flight logs so many times. Later on, NM starts to show up on nearly every flight manifest. For people involved in such illegal activity, it's weird the amount of photographs of powerful people as well as young women with the powerful people that were able to be found. Now, there is a reason for this. Now, Virginia Roberts claims that Epstein loved to tell her about all the powerful people who he knew their dirty little secrets and had dirt on them. And she says that he had rigged the entire house with a security system where there were cameras in every bathroom and in every bedroom, and that he did this on purpose. He was collecting information, compromising information on the world's most powerful people. Virginia Roberts is quoted as saying, Epstein and Maxwell also got girls for Epstein's friends and acquaintances. Epstein specifically told me that the reason for him doing this was so that they would owe him, that they would be in his pocket. He said that he would have something on them. Roberts claims, I understood him to mean that when someone was in his pocket, they owed him favors. And Epstein was now going to have to ask for a very big favor.